One of the most notable and exciting things about Final Fantasy VII Remake was the way it updated the original game's combat system, merging the feeling of menu-based commands and action game controls. Stranger of Paradise, Final Fantasy Origins, does something similar with a take on the job system that's a big part of Final Fantasy's history. The ability to switch between combat roles on the fly allows for a whole lot of interesting versatility, adding tactical considerations to protagonist Jack's angry shouting, slashing, and headbutting during combat. We recently got a chance to play the second playable demo of Stranger of Paradise ahead of its release. Like the first demo, it includes the Chaos Shrine level that ends with players taking on Chaos, also known as Garland. But it also includes another section that gives a sense of Final Fantasy Origins' take on the series and how expansive the job system really is. If you want to see more coverage of Stranger of Paradise from GameSpot, make sure to hit the like and subscribe buttons below. The new demo for Stranger of Paradise sends you back to the Chaos Shrine, the scene of the original PlayStation 5 demo for the game, but this time it adds some new context. That demo ended with you taking on a knight the protagonist characters called Garland, who they also think is some kind of evil entity known as Chaos, and they really want to kill Chaos. In the second demo, defeating Chaos triggers a new cutscene that carries the story a little further forward and introduces a new character to your party. It turns out that the Chaos Advent you had fought wasn't Garland or a monster. It was another hero named Neon. It's convoluted, but it turns out that Neon is the fourth prophesied warrior of light and joins up with the protagonist Jack and his pals to try to kill the real Chaos, who Neon doesn't really think exists. The demo then took us to a second level, the Referent wetlands. Though we didn't get much of a story prompt for this level, it seems like it's the first stop on the party's trip to find a Final Fantasy brand crystal that Jack and Co. need for their crusade against Chaos. The interesting thing about Referent wetlands is that as you work your way through it, you'll use special interactable nodes to change the weather in the environment. You could alternate the environment between sunny and rainy, with some areas flooding in the rain and barring your passage, and other paths closing off in the sun. Changing the weather to alter the environment had a more interesting effect, though. It changes how some enemies fight you. Several of the creatures we encountered through the course of the wetlands have electricity-based attacks. Facing them in the rain created big puddles where their attacks were more effective. But if you had the forethought to find a node and change the weather to sunny before a fight, you could take those abilities off the table before the encounter even started. The main focus of our look at the demo, though, was the job system. Square Enix gave us a chance to play the Referent Wetlands mission with all jobs unlocked and leveled up, allowing us to see how they all work in action. A few of the jobs appeared in the original demo, like Swordsman, Pugilist, Mage, and Lancer. In the new demo, we saw the addition of Neon as a sword fighter who carries both a sword and a shield, and more advanced jobs like Warrior, Knight, Thief, and the classic Black, White, and Red mages. Like in Final Fantasy I and other FF games, once you advance a given job, you can unlock more varied, in-depth versions of that job. You're free to swap jobs whenever you want, and from what we played, it seems like a good idea. The first demo showed off how tough combat can be in Stranger of Paradise. It takes a lot of inspiration from other Team Ninja games like Nioh. This demo was big on showing off how the jobs are effective in different situations. You can equip 2 jobs to protagonist Jack at a time, which you're able to then swap between on the fly with a single button press. We found that to be great for combining a melee class and a spellcaster class, which was essential in the wetlands. In addition to various hungry beasts and electrically charged reptiles hanging around, there were also elemental creatures that use spells like fire and blizzard on our group. Having the ability to swap to a black mage job to hit fire elementals with water spells made taking them down a lot easier. But even if you're not wielding magic, you can use Jack's Soul Shield ability to absorb a lot of different kinds of attacks from enemies, like their spells, and throw them back at them. Wielding different abilities and using them in different ways showed Stranger of Paradise at its best. You get a lot of options for how to fight enemies. Which class you pick allows you to focus on different kinds of attacks and damage types. For instance, the Sword Fighter is big on direct damage to HP, but doesn't do much to stagger enemies, while while the swordsman and the warrior are more about driving up that stagger meter on foes to get a finisher off on them, but aren't great at dealing direct damage. Hot swapping between jobs means you could wail on one creature, dodge away for a second, then pull out something like your white mage abilities and cast regen and haste on your team before going back into the fray. The opportunities for coming up with your own strategies and synergies were particularly prevalent in the Referent wetlands boss fight, where we fought a big metallic orb filled with elemental energy. The orb would constantly spit out one of two different elemental bosses, a fire-based one and a water-based one. Adjusting your strategy for different situations, for blasting the elementals with different spells or cutting in close to deal some melee damage was key, because if you let the orb get the upper hand, it might even spawn both elementals at once. With Jack's Soul Shield ability, however, it was possible to block and capture one elemental's abilities to use against the other one. Stranger of Paradise also rewards you for building job affinity with your characters. Certain weapons and armor increase your job affinity, as does spending experience points to level up that job. The more affinity with a job you have, the more bonuses you accrue, allowing you to mix the upshots of one job with the fighting style of another. You might get stat bonuses like an agility boost from raising your affinity as a lancer, but higher affinities can unlock actual job abilities to use even if you don't have that job equipped. We also saw hybrid jobs like the Red Mage, which combines some of the Black Mage's spellcasting abilities with some of the White Mage's healing abilities. You can unlock those jobs as you climb other job trees. It's an expansive system that gives you a whole lot of different combat abilities, combos, and options for how you want to deal with foes. In fact, you might be a little too spoiled for choice in Stranger of Paradise. The job system is extremely expansive, almost to the point of being overwhelming. Swapping to a new job lets you set combos and battle abilities, and coupled with your standard melee and spellcasting abilities, your dodge, your block, your parry mechanics, your finishers, and your special Lightbringer fighter mode, I straight up forgot about a lot of the things I could be doing in a fight. Executing your special job abilities usually requires remembering relatively simple button combos, but in the heat of battle, you can never just stop and think about what you want to do. This also made playing as a mage kind of annoying. Your spellcasting interface is a radial menu you adjust with the thumbsticks while you're charging a spell. You have to pay attention to spell selection, spell charging, and spell targeting all at once. There's also Stranger of Paradise's big emphasis on loot, an RPG staple that feels like it's been turned up very high. To some degree, Stranger of Paradise is an action take on Final Fantasy tropes. The mission screen for Referent Wetlands shows the rewards you'll earn for completing it, which suggests you can replay missions over and over to grind better gear and increase your stats. The only trouble is you get a ton of loot all the time. I found myself stopping every few steps to rearrange my gear as I leveled up. That said, the gear system, like the job system, seems cool and expansive. You're not just thinking about what gear is giving your character the best stats, but what bonuses you get from that gear in terms of job affinity, defensive perks, and the like. There's a huge amount of customization on hand, and from the looks of things, you can return to levels and grind out better gear over and over to make yourself an even more powerful fighter. The hints we've gotten at Stranger of Paradise's story, the details of which have been minimal so far, are also pretty interesting. Neon's introduction as a character who tried to become Chaos just so someone like Jack would have a Chaos to kill is a really weird and fascinating twist on the usual Final Fantasy premise. It sounds like we're going to be fundamentally questioning the idea of warriors of light and fighting a big bad boss at the end of a game. It also seems like there might be more than one set of heroes, since Neon had a group of her own, and we might see some fundamental questioning of the prophecies driving these heroes on their quests. My impression from the second demo of Stranger of Paradise is that its combat and systems are fun to play with and interestingly responsive, building a uniquely Final Fantasy take on some of the things we've seen from other big action games, such as Neo. But there's also a lot to parse here, and it can get confusing. That said, this spin on Final Fantasy mechanics and combats is a fascinating one, and I enjoyed pummeling my way through various enemies and tough bosses. It's a Final Fantasy game where it feels like your strategic choices are just as important as your quick reflexes in combat, and while everything you know about Final Fantasy makes Stranger of Paradise feel familiar, there's a lot more going on under the surface of what we've seen so far.